I recently had the chance to visit the Volcán de Mi Tierra distillery in Jalisco, Mexico, a distillery located at the foot of the literal tequila volcano that hasn't exploded for some 200,000 years. Thankfully, it didn't explode while I was down there, and I got to explore a sick facility that's been doing some really great stuff with additive-free tequila. And I even got to see a few secrets along the way that I wasn't expecting to get access to. Let's go check it out. We pulled up to the distillery on a warm, late September day. It was about a 2-hour drive west of Guadalajara, and we were immediately greeted by this nicely built-out welcome area. They had a huge back bar with all the brand's bottlings, a side-by-side of the 3 liquids that go into their Blanco blend, and a mini museum of sorts with all this agave memorabilia, next to a sweeping view of the agave fields located right across the street. The first thing you should know about Volcán de Mi Tierra is that it's co-owned by LVMH, the French luxury powerhouse behind Hennessy, Moët & Chandon, Dom Perignon, Belvedere, and a bunch of other big ol' fancy spirits brands. I bring this up because Volcán is so far LVMH's only foray into the tequila world, kind of surprisingly for such a huge brand and such a huge spirits category. And to be honest, it definitely showed when I was visiting the distillery. My impression was that the powers that be have invested a lot of money into Volcán to make sure it's a big hit wherever it goes. Truly a distillery bigger than its wildest dreams, on some Willy Wonka type of stuff. And I'm happy to report that the juice is pretty damn good too. As is often the case when you're visiting a distillery, the first big sight we got to see were those agave fields. Somewhat unusually, Volcán distills its tequila from a mix of highlands and lowlands agaves, and this being the lowlands, we were really only seeing one half of the equation. These plants take around 6 to 7 years to grow to maturity before they can be distilled, and off in the distance there you can see the iconic tequila volcano itself. So the story goes, the Volcán de Tequila gave its name to the nearby town of Tequila, which in turn invented the spirit, then known as Vino de Mezcal de Tequila in the 16th century. This is relevant for a few reasons. Of course, the brand was named after the volcano, and it even contains a mini version of the mountain peak at the bottom of some of its bigger bottles. More importantly though, is that the influence and flavor of the volcano can still be found all across fields in the area. If you dig around in the soil, you can actually find tiny chunks of obsidian that were deposited from the last eruption all those centuries ago. Maybe the coolest memento I've ever gotten on a distillery tour, and Lord knows I'll be holding onto this one for a while. Next, we headed to the distillery proper, with a few rules to keep in mind. The brand had just gotten its ISO certification, basically an official proof of cleanliness. And there was this checklist that included obvious stuff like no smoking, and then some kind of funny, unexpected stuff like no makeup or jewelry in the fermentation area. I was wearing neither makeup nor jewelry, so I tossed on my vest and we hit the road. This is where they pile up all the trimmed agave hearts. They hack them into pieces, toss them onto conveyor belts, and send them into either a traditional brick oven or an autoclave, depending on which batch of tequila they're making. I tried picking one of these up, and even chopped into quarters, it must have weighed at least 50 pounds. I immediately understood why they were using construction vehicles to lug these around. Right around the corner was the meat and potatoes of the processing area. In addition to a roller mill, which is used to shred the hearts, they have these 2 big old cajonas, which are basically 2-ton volcanic stone wheels that are pulled slowly in circles over a pulpy mash of roasted agave. Many people say these make the best tequila. Truth be told, I was a little disappointed I didn't get to spot them in action, but it was cool enough to see them up close and personal. After that, we put on our hairnets and swung by the fermentation area. Full disclosure, I am mildly scared of heights, and the size and scale of these fermentation tanks got me a little bit wound up. On the more manageable side of things, they also had these wooden fermentation tanks that they used to hold some of their more high-end juice, and it looked fresh enough to go swimming in. I said it before and I'll say it again, but the size and scale of this was pretty shocking. Bear in mind that this is a distillery that produces just one brand, when it easily has the capacity to make dozens. Really respect the commitment to the craft here, and I'm sure we'll see a whole lot more from Volcán in years to come. Which leads us to this door. Now, the team was playing very mysterious about what was behind this, and I was half expecting it to be a tasting room or a bathroom or maybe just a parking lot. Turned out we were heading down, down, down into the depths for what was by far the craziest thing we saw all day. This was the barrel cellar. They told me that they had 3,500 barrels aging down here, and I absolutely would have believed it if they told me they had a few thousand more. I felt like a kid in a candy shop, just cask after cask in every direction. We were about 8 meters below ground, so everything felt very temperature controlled, very cool, which to my understanding is the best way to age tequila in an infamously hot climate like Mexico. Nestled in the corner, they had this stack of steel single barrels aged in a variety of specialty casks. I spotted French red wine, Sauterne, Ardbeg Scotch, and a handful of other goodies. Unfortunately, didn't get to try any of those, but we were offered a taste of one of the brand's upcoming releases by the master distiller. I can't share any of the details right now, but this was delicious, wonderfully oaky stuff. Can't wait for it to come to market. I figured this would be the last stop on our journey, but not quite. Last but not least was the bottling and packing area. It's easy to think about this step as an afterthought, but it's always really interesting to see in person. Each bottle is filled with tequila, labeled by hand, and sent down this little conveyor belt that shrinks a plastic wrap around the cork. The bottles are packed in 6 each inside these boxes that say tequila should taste like tequila. And indeed, Volcán de Mi Tierra does. Can't thank the team enough for inviting me down to check out the facility. I think my favorite from the collection has to be either the regular Blanco or the XA, which is a blend of aged reserves with this really warm, fruit-forward autumn spice vibe that's always a blast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Tequila Pour for more trips into the heartland of agave country.